like that I was coming up with a
Black bar on my past, can't track this. Screenshots cropped out, can't catch this. If it looks too wild on the axis, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. Redact this. Blood and face, can't fact check the madness. Throwing out page from the bad habits atlas. If the story get messy in the ad libs, highlight, right click, boom, redact this. I was young, I was dumb, I was scrolling. Type way too much, hit send, heart swollen. Now I keep receipts like a lawyer with a photo, but anything risky.
All right, we're coming. Hold on. We're about to start. What's happening? I heard Chicago, and then I was like, stop fooling around. We got a couple minutes. We're okay. Hi, welcome to the show, everybody. We're Johnny and I are just messing around. We're just discussing how brutally jealous I am of him right now.
And it all came together so fast. Lisa and I were like, boy, I can't remember the last time I've seen Tori Amos. I had never seen her. And she said, well, let's make a point to see her next. I looked it up, and like 2 weeks away from the night we had that talk.
Oh, wow.
She was at the Auditorium Theater.
Yeah, so those just joining us, what's happening? Hit the like, share the show. It's House Parks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. We're about to get started, but Johnny went and saw Tori Amos last night with Mrs. Million, and we were both talking about the fact that I guess Mrs. Million's favorite song at the time was Winter, and I, of course, can't not sing that song in my head all the time. It is my backup song for crying on camera.
Right. The other one being Sometimes It Snows in April.
Snows in April. Yep. Both of those. A lot of snow involved in those things. Yeah. And I think, you know what I think it is? There's an old bluegrass song called Footprints in the Snow about a girl who was lost, who walked out of the front door of the cabin and and she almost died and whatever. And it's
what a dummy.
Yeah, really. And the line though is, God bless the day when Maggie lost her way and I found her little footprints in the snow. And they're like, it's like all there.
That's pretty good.
It's all there, right? And that I think that I listened when my dad would sing that song, and I'd sit, I'd sleep at the foot of his chair while he and Harry Bickle and all these other guys would sit around playing bluegrass till 4 o'clock in the morning at the Bluegrass Hotel, which is what they called Harry's house and Harry Bickle's house in Louisville. And that was one of the songs that like I would always perk up for. That one and Tennessee Stud, of course.
That's fun.
Yeah, Tennessee Stud was a long and lean, the color of the sun, and his eyes were green. Like that was always the line that stuck out. Yeah, for me. So, and then Muhlenberg County, Daddy Won't You Take Me, which is a very telling one considering how like timely it is currently, which is Daddy Won't You Take Me Back to Muhlenberg County, down by the Green River where the paradise lay. I'm sorry, my son, Lord, you're too late in asking. Mr. Peabody's coal train has hauled it away. Holy shit.
Oh.
Right?
Oh, boy.
Ouch. Yeah. Like that, like, yeah. You don't really as a kid, it might be hard to kind of realize how much those things will resonate.
Oh yeah, I've got a lot of those songs from like Ray Charles and the Carpenters and Simon and Garfunkel from when I was a kid.
There's a what's the one that the Ray Charles song from Old Man River, when he does Old Man River and
Ray Charles singing country is pretty unreal.
Yeah. But in Joe versus a Volcano.
Oh, it's in Joe versus a Volcano. No wonder I love that movie.
Yeah, when he finds out he's going to die, and he just walks out on the step.
Theory.
Yes.
I have a theory that that entire movie is a setup for the punchline of wherever we go, we're bringing this luggage.
Okay. Yeah, it's a big ad for having big trunks. I still got my trunks. Right. I suppose. I find I have a list of like healing movies that when I need a little pick me up that's more direct than just watching a comfort film.
But can he do the job?
I know he can get the job, But can he do? I'm not arguing that with you. I know he can get the job. What? One moment. I've got a thing here. Mr. Waturi. Mr. Waho Waturi. He's got
I'm not arguing that with you.
I'm not arguing that with you. Joe, don't touch that. What are you doing? I'm turning on or turning off the main drain. Nothing happened. You know how long I've been wondering what would happen if I did that?
By the way, we're on.
We are? I don't see them. The lovely folks at there we go. I'm removing them from the green room. They were muted. Hello, Chicago. Yeah. Good to see you. Welcome. We're live. We're up.
I know. Wait,
this is the comment.
Well, no, for some reason, I'm like, guys, we're live.
We're live, and you're talking about Joe versus the volcano.
But you know what? We should. Quite frankly, I look forward to the day when the chit chat happens around that. These are the rolling conversations that Johnny and I get into when we're not engaged in I guess another never-ending war in the Middle East. The Republicans are not taking the repair work and the good work that Democrats did on the economy and trashing it, right? Like clockwork. When that isn't happening, these are the conversations we get to have. These are the things we get to talk about, Johnny Million.
So let's vote less evil right there.
Yes, exactly. Always. And there was we'll talk about some of the DSA candidate stuff because the stats have come back from the polling versus who showed up and whether or not they, the numbers people were expecting showed up on the actual day. And that little nagging thing, ladies and gentlemen, that unlike, I think, I don't want to out you, but when did you vote first in a presidential election? The first time you could, or was it a couple years?
It was the first time I could. It was Bush.
88. Yeah, 88. You and I both. Yeah, because I was 18 in 88, and I turned 18 just before that. So I've been voting. I voted in every presidential election and practically every midterm. I don't think I've missed any, but I might have over the years since I was 18 years old. And as not just a point of pride, but it was like a civic duty. Is like I was just raised like that's what you do. You want to. Yeah. It's a nice. It's a nice system if you can keep it. And so part of the keeping it is the constant gardening of actually being involved in every election. So, but, as we know, with the years of motor voter bills and rock the vote and all those kind of things, the biggest, hardest thing seems to be in generational waves is talking those youngins into voting, getting them out there. And there's especially if they get really involved in a short order, like in a primary, and it doesn't go their way the first time, there's this arc of, and it'll keep them out of voting for about 3 years. There's a psychological impact that they've tracked over the years, and it's pretty obvious that if you're really involved in politics, something extraordinary has happened, whether it's the 2008 crash or whether it's Trump coming or going, or whether it's you could argue this around Carter and Reagan a little bit, that probably the first real wave of that, certainly the 60s, that there's this period of
that was I think the first presidential election that I noticed was Carter Ford.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah. And certainly
I was concerned, there was misinformation back then.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, for God's sake, look at like how the news was written about the Old West for years. Like, it's in many ways, we haven't evolved to fake news. We've vacillated through periods of it over decades because who it serves and when it serves them is a major factor in, those kind of stories. But when it comes to the youngins, the more involved they are, the more ferocious the political period that a young person entering the political fray is in, the more acutely they will feel the need to be involved. And if it doesn't automatically go their way in one or two cycles, it will disenfranchise them faster than somebody who just voted because you vote. That maybe they weren't really involved in the primaries. I don't remember being really involved in the primaries when I was, I don't think I could be because of my birthday, but even a
Mm.
couple of it was multiple cycles before I really focused on who my primary choice would be because it.
But I tell you, all I
Yeah.
noticed was that they made Dukakis out to be an idiot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, this would, but it was you have to understand why would they do that? Because he was running against
Oh,
George
well, at the time,
H.W.
I was not
Bush.
prepared to answer that question.
Right, right, exactly. And George H.W. Bush, former head of the CIA, vice president for 2 cycles, seemed like a statesman by comparison, but an absolute dweeb by all fronts. Pointed out, I think, in large part by Dana Carvey's impersonation of him, and which didn't really take off
Yeah, yeah.
until he became president. If Dana Carvey's impersonation of George H.W. Bush had been a bigger thing in 86, for example, because he'd been out there more, the public perception of him as a dweeb would have been spiking before the election or during it. That's and it would have had an impact. It really would have. Would it have put Dukakis over the top? I don't think so.
No.
And I think he had a last name problem that shows up occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Pretty
because
pretty exotic.
yeah, but also Dukaka and all that. Like it's too easy. It's like a kid playground issue, and people avoid
Yeah.
that.
You
Um,
can't put cock in any name and
yeah,
expect it to be taken seriously.
exactly. So, but over this last couple of cycles, especially, what we've seen is the big division over the last couple of decades, especially amongst the slacktivist class, has been by and large about the how do we put this the establishment not in Washington but of the party itself, that the disdain for Washington D.C., which is I believe displaced and silly because it
Oh
is
yeah.
simply the gathering place for where the federal government is, and of course you're going to send your representative there, and if your representative is like, I'm going to change Washington, you're like, no you're not, you're there to represent the state amongst all the other states. Simmer down. And
There are a
where
few
I'm not,
people who get it. I see them talking on C-SPAN every now and then.
yeah, well, that's where they end up, right? They don't end up on CNN or even MS Now or Fox. Certainly, they end up on C-SPAN. But
Right.
the sensible talk about sensible government only gets you so far. It gets really boring really
Yeah.
fast, but it comes in waves. I think we're heading back towards that direction. I think Joe Biden was a tip of the hat to a kinder, gentler, let's get on with it era. That's really what did drive his election, and to some degree, the rejection of Harris might have been part of and parcel that was like, I don't know if I'm ready for an extraordinary milestone again.
That seems
And so,
radical.
right, exactly. Anything radical is just going like, hey, everybody wants to be a radical right out,
Right. And
and
even though she was just like an even-keeled,
yeah,
pragmatic Democrat.
but she was a woman of color. She was a Democrat. She was, we're at a tipping point where she was not as friendly to Israel and Netanyahu as Trump
Right.
might be, which is considered, again, even though the polling says they don't like what Israel's doing in Gaza, they don't like what Israel's doing currently. It doesn't
People
translate
seem
to the
more
exist.
convinced that Harris was going to like create a genocide than
Right,
Trump for some reason.
well, that was also the sales pitch. And this is the problem that I've had lately. And I
Oh,
bring this
thank you,
up
Hal
on,
Vickery.
yeah. Oh, bless your heart, Hal Vickery. Did we see that? Oh, thank you. So he goes, I'll never miss an election. And he says, I'll never miss a general election. Sorry, for my first chance to vote in 1972, I was a lot slower with the primaries, but haven't missed one in over 30 years. That's great.
Oh
And
yeah.
Peter, thank you. Good morning as well. Yeah, stay safe and informed. Together better. I agree. So,
Yep.
one of the things about the youngins is that they'll show up for the primary, but for a myriad of reasons, one of which might be to be a spoiler in that primary,
Yeah.
to go and just wreck the
The primaries are
machine.
full of people with big ideas.
That's right. And this, is like the ideas of fall in love and fall in line, or vote blue no matter who, or whatever, were valuable arguments for trying to accomplish the goals we all agree on. So they were weaponized by outside forces, not just the Republican Party, but foreign actors worked very hard at basically turning whatever turn your strength into a weakness, turn your catchphrases and the stuff into a weakness, into an ironic saying or what have you. In the same way that, we go after, MAGA and call it Magoo, make America great over and over again, because apparently the whole thing, make it great and then wreck it, and make it great and then wreck it. You can't just make it great and leave it there. That's no fun. Then you have to run on CAG. Remember that? Keep America
CAG.
Great. That was Trump's replacement.
That's bad.
That was what
That's
he
not
came up
good.
with. No, it's not. MAGA he stole. CAG was his idea. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. Obviously, there's a ton of news, not the least of which is the ridiculous response to from Hegseth and Trump attacking the press over reporting that we've had sailors jumping ship, literally, because of extended deployments that were never supposed to happen because of a campaign promise. We'll be back right after this.
It's got to be true, because they're both Hegseth and Trump are denying it.
Oh yeah. Well, and again, they're running on this kind of what was like the soldier fell overboard. I'm like, okay, first of all, dummy, do not attempt to salvage a guy jumping with a guy fell. That still doesn't look very good. And that guy fell while what? You were stopping the other two guys from jumping, which is the greater part of the story. Ridiculous. It's the whole, yeah, it's gross. And let's see.
Oh, I have a whole theory I'd like to share with you, because we just watched The Godfather.
Oh, okay.
And
not for the first time, obviously, you just rewatched it, I guess.
Oh no, we just
30 seconds, gents.
Yeah. Thank you. And I don't know if Mrs. Million had seen the whole thing from front to back, but I had. And watching Marlon Brando as Vito Corleone, all I saw was, this is who Trump is doing an impression of all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All the time.
Yeah. Well, he does the whole Mussolini lifting his chin so that you don't see his jowls and his nunt.
Yeah.
Right. That's clearly the
on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
Welcome back. So we lost 23,000 jobs in July. Retail slumped like half a point. They revised down two other months to a loss of over 120,000 jobs. I believe over the last 3 months. The gas is at its highest point at this point in the year ever. And this idea that somehow, as soon as this is all over, the price of oil is going to come plunging down, seems a little thin as an argument amongst the American people. Not because, and I would argue, and I have argued for a while, that there isn't too much oil in the world, which there absolutely is. And I did the math last week, and it drove me nuts that people didn't spot this. 20 million barrels a day average coming out of the Strait of Hormuz before the war. Now about 9 million barrels a day is sneaking through close to the Oman side of the strait, and they're getting about that amount out through 9 million, and then split between an increase in production through the pipelines of Saudi Arabia. They're increasing about 9 million of that 20 million that was going through there is getting out through other means. That means we're 11 million barrels shy of normal, what really would have been flowing for quite some time. However,
these are tough numbers for me to get my brain around.
Okay. 20 million used to go through, 9 million now going through. So we are, and that was normal, right? Normal prices where oil was headed. It was on a downward trajectory after COVID. Prices were going down because production was getting back to normal or staying at as normal. Here's the thing that's going to mess with your head, Johnny Million. You 20 million used to go through there. 9 million is now going through there. But we are only 1.8 million barrels short of demand, which means cogito ergo sum e pluribus unum, have a nice day. We were approximately, give or take, we're overproducing demand by 7 million barrels a day worldwide. It was 6 last year. Production has increased in a bunch of areas. But even without Russia online, even without the massive flows from Iran or opening that market up, and even with Argentina, at some point, the companies are rushing into the country and reopening these things. Even in those circumstances, we've got too much oil for the market demand, to the order of about 9 million barrels. Too much. That's why prices for oil have not gone up to $150, $200 a barrel. And the reason behind that is myriad. The biggest one being is that the advances in oil production and the flows were aimed at satisfying a growing market in China they were expecting would require all this oil. A decade and a half ago, especially during the shale revolution, oh my God, China is going to have a consumer base the size of the United States, in a matter of months, and they've got 3 times as many people. And they're printing a millionaire every 5 minutes and blah, blah, blah. Like all that. Remember that? Remember that story?
No.
Yeah, they were printing a millionaire every 5 minutes. That was and I guess it was in yuan, but still. And the expectation was those people, some of them are going to be driving electric cars, I suppose, or whatever, but a lot of them are going to drive Mercedes like they do. And they're going to drive diesel engines and all that throughout Southeast Asia. There's a lot of diesel. And so the oil market itself, even if these guys electrify or sell electric cars to Europe, the oil that's going to be pouring out of, we're going to be able to sell it at a premium. It's going to be $70 a barrel and take us $30 to get it out of the ground. We're in the money. That was the thought. And in some ways, that's where Trump's brain still is. We know that he's got brain lock, like he took the drug in Kids in the Hall brain candy, and he just fixates on these moments that he can't shake. And you brought up one because you just watched the Godfather.
The Godfather
again, right? And tell everybody you're convincing. I don't know if we were on.
I could not shake every time Marlon Brando's Vito Corleone was on screen, being magnanimous. Like he's even though he's a ruthless gangster in that movie, he's likable and he's charming and he's a man of the people. All I saw was Trump doing an impression of that guy, that actor, that performance.
Right.
It's all I could see.
Yes, everything is everything is a reboot with Trump. Anyways, he has no original ideas, and it's no surprise that would be his idea of what power is, right, or what influence is.
Yeah, like right at the beginning, there's a dude saying, "Please kill this guy who hurt my daughter," and he's kissing his ring, and Brando's they're like, "Good, good," like he loves it, like the way Trump loves when people adore him for no reason. That's all he wants, is to be adored for whatever the reason.
Yeah, he probably I'm sure he saw that movie. I guarantee he didn't see the other two, and certainly none of the history of how he became Vito Corleone. You know what I mean? And what it took and what he went through and how terrible it was and all the stuff that you have to go through and why people end up kissing your ring in the first place. Because of what the awful you had to do to get in the position that you were in, right? That party just kind of,
that's all very messy.
Hobbs just said Vito Corleone never hid in a food cart. Agreed. touche, certainly. But I don't know. We don't know how they snuck him out of Italy that time. They just say that he did. So he could have been in there with the spaghetti. Who could, you know what I mean? He could have been riding in the Ace Tomato Company's
I saw
shipping
a
container.
meme that had when the threat is fake, and it had Trump with his fists up and his fake bloody ear,
Mm-hmm.
and then when it's real, him hiding in like that cart that they push on airplanes.
Right. But here's my problem. And I don't know. We didn't get to talk about this necessarily. I don't think. My theory about the switching of planes, nothing to do with a threat to his life by Iran. Nothing at all. Not cowardice.
Okay.
Not nothing. The entire thing was because they outfitted the C-32A as a hospital plane, and he has more fear of dying from deep vein thrombosis or having an attack or the damage that long flights like that have on him because of how Lindsey Graham died. He's very concerned about that stuff. And also the 18 to 22 doctors that he is currently seeing, those people, they don't want them flying on and getting on and off Air Force One with the press. They don't want to see that team of doctors that's flying with them. They fly on a separate plane. So they used to do this kind of like, well, he'll fly in the big fluffy, cushy bunk bed plane. And then on the real Air Force One, we'll bring the support staff and the medical professionals. But they needed a facility. They're like, we don't have the stuff we need to treat him. And if he's going to fly to make sure that he doesn't stroke out again, we're going to need a hyperbaric chamber and we're going to need all this kind of stuff. So the
So all the
C-32A.
theories about Caroline Leavitt leaving because she was put on the decoy plane. I mean, I like that.
I do too, but clearly not the case. And
Darn
and
it.
the idea that she even was is also suspect. They weren't ever at risk. She knows this. The idea that there was somebody snuck into Turkey with a shoulder fire missile and was going to be able to hit Air Force One is dumb. And the big tell was the CIA. The CIA comes out with this, they're like, yeah, we did an intel assessment on the dangers or whatever. It was, we got some tip-offs from the Israeli, but we didn't take it very seriously because they're trying to push us this way. And so we checked our other sources and there was nothing. So there was, but let's say you get that threat and you need a
You get that
reason.
threat. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, right. You need a reason to move the president out of the eyes of the public and the press. What a great excuse. You could even, in theory, call Netanyahu and go, hey, call me and tell me there's a threat so that I can move him onto the C-32A and he can fly in the ambulance plane. I'm not kidding at all.
Wow.
That is my real assessment, judging from the whys and wherefores of that I absolutely think that is what occurred. Otherwise, they would have just moved him to the original Air Force One. The reason it was the C-32A was because they had to outfit it with more gear. It has a big payload at the back. You can put almost anything in there. You
I
can
don't
have your
hate
own
that.
Walter Reed. It's also the same reason he went to Camp David. Same reason. He hates Camp David. It's boring. But it has a medical facility there that's on par with Walter Reed, and the press isn't allowed to see who's there unless you let them, which is very different from a motorcade to Walter Reed from the Oval Office, right? That's why. And that is it. Yes, it was a medevac plane. And I'm sticking to it. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Housemarks Radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Mm-hmm. Yep. Let's see if I can bring this. There we go. What in the? Excellent. Trump just ordered 250 million new cars because his motorcade didn't look good to him. Right. One second.
Someone in the chat says they love
seconds.
Detective Hal.
Say again, Johnny.
Someone in the chat says that they love them some Detective Hal.
True Detective Hal. Yep.
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back. So there obviously there was a bunch of news this week when the Trump administration, hears about this thing about our troops. Basically, it's the longest deployment. We're now at like whatever almost 260 days at sea with no port call. So they don't even get to go ashore for a little while and get like none of that. Like it's one thing to be like stationed on a ship for a long time like that, but usually you go, port to port and you have some time on shore and you have shore leave and all that stuff. Bless you. And that's kind of, it's crucial for your mental health, your physical health. It's good for troop morale. But here they are floating as Trump's steel wall. And that's his description of their job. And when he's asked about have they been at sea too long? His response was, did you see this, Johnny Million, where he said, have they been at sea too long? And he said,
I saw a headline that said that he shrugged it off.
Yes, he said, not nearly long enough. All right.
What does that even mean?
It doesn't mean anything. It is literally just so that he can sound tough about something. Like his brain tells him that sounds like in charge, but it doesn't check any boxes to make any strategic sense.
Yeah.
It's not respectful of the troops. It's not threatening to Iran. Yeah. It's grotesque is
when
what
they
it is.
ask him something and he offers up a fact or a figure, he's like, yeah, they're probably going to send like 400, well, maybe even like 4,000. I've heard some people say 4,000.
Yeah.
Like how he just ups it for no reason. Oh, well, then they probably haven't spent enough time on the boat.
Right. He, let's see if this one's, here.
Okay, what else do I have to say?
Family members of U.S. service members are concerned about the conditions on board the USS Lincoln.
Well, no, that ship is moving. No, they're not. That ship is moving right now, or very shortly, and it's being replaced with another very similar ship.
Right now, or very shortly?
No. Not nearly long enough.
She goes, have the deployments gone on too long? And he says, no, not nearly long enough. Okay, there's a ton of gibberish that comes out of this man. We deal with it all the time. This,
I know words. I have the best words.
Like every time you turn around, he's saying something that
the diversity lottery.
Right. Just
10,000 known or suspected gang members.
Deliberately, willfully, and with total premeditation.
Right.
Obama.
Right.
I hope they now go and take a look at the oranges.
So we're used to this.
Look at the oranges.
I do. I think so. Especially, I was saying this way. Why are navel oranges only the ones with Audis? So an innie isn't a navel? Is that what they're saying? I'm
it needs to be looked into.
Yeah.
They sacrifice every day for the furniture and future.
So
I don't remember that one.
Oh, it's like, I was talking to somebody like this week about how like it took probably, maybe 8 or 10 rallies to fill up my first soundboard of stuff. You know what I mean? Is like
once it was reluctantly aroused. It was hard to get it aroused, and it is hard to get it aroused, but we got it aroused.
right.
Oh, that was about the economy, right?
Yep.
We're going to be appointing very pro-crime judges.
So, like he would say, of course,
Michigan gave us Motang.
every time we turned around, there would be one of those. Now, he's just like it's again and again and again. Like there's and there's so much beyond just where he screws up a word and
Free health care for illegal. Look.
Right, where he can't get the word out for some reason, his paraphasia and that kind of stuff. Increasingly, it's just slurry and slobbery.
Yeah.
Most of the, when I'm covering them on the Daily Show, I have this. It's a little bit like, okay, this is important to cover because of what he's talking about, the topics, and you need to see the people who are in the room with him and the questions he gets asked and his responses. He is the president of the United States, and we need to, forewarned is forearmed. It's important to know what's actually going on, but it's so gross listening to him speak, and then never mind the fact that he farted himself awake this week. He was doing one of those doze offs, and he literally broke wind and woke himself up in his chair. And at this point, I wish desperately that maggots were leaving and the aides inside the White House were leaving, because this is the last straw. He said no forever wars. This is he was going to stop the corruption and the lawfare, and now he's doing lawfare and he's doing the corruption. I wish they were leaving for that reason, but honest to God, I think it's just the smell. I think at this point, I think they're just leaving because they can't take it anymore. That's it. I wish it was moral. I wish it was, just an ethical line he crossed, and it was like, oh my God, I just woke up to the fact that he is a terrible human being, and I can never be a servant to this regime ever again. But nope. They're just leaving because he stinks. I swear to God.
Yeah.
Like all of them are like, I can't. And maybe it's, Caroline Leavitt just had a baby. And sometimes that affects your olfactory senses, during pregnancy and after. Changes how things taste, how things smell, what you can put up with, what you can't, right? And ladies, bless your hearts. I mean, a burden will never know in that regard. But the only I guess solace, ladies, is that while we don't experience that, the odds of us smelling almonds and falling over is higher, or at least earlier by about a decade. So there's that trade-off, I suppose. But suddenly you like the taste of Chinese food, and then you suddenly hate it, or beer tastes like soap, or whatever that the changes in your system, right? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe Caroline Leavitt is just like, she used to be able to like it. It was like, it smelled like home. And now she just can't. And increasingly we've seen a few people around him that can't not notice that he has filled his pants with soup, for real. And an increasing number of these, an increasing number of these situations where he's got this gaggle of people around him, where, by the way, this in and of itself was part of the tell where I was like, I'm convinced this airplane swap was medical. Very specifically, because we have never seen, I don't know when the last time he did an Oval Office signing where you watched him come in, stand behind a podium, say something, or sit down, or when he was in the chair, get up from the chair, go and do something, shake somebody's hand, and then sit back down. They have, I could think of maybe once in the last 8 months. And I may just being charitable. I may be remembering something that was a video of something he did last year. But in every situation, the press comes in after he's already seated. There's a flank of people behind him who, very well, could be stepping on his hose like an airplane if they're not careful. But he's sitting there the whole time. He's covering his hand. He's dozing off. He's and this has happened for a while. In the beginning of the year, he was doing most of the talking. He was still sitting, but he was doing most of the talking, and people had to stand there and listen to him babble for, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
That has stopped as well. I don't know if you've noticed, but they have started arranging for other people to say things. I'm going to say something, then he's going to say something, then she's going to say something, and then we're going to say that, and then somebody's going to come up and they're going to say something, and then we're going to be done. And he reads from his little list, and he says his muscle memory, greatest economy ever, and Joe Biden was auto pen, blah blah blah, and he rolls through a bunch of those, and then when he gets like bored with his own BS, then he'll go, and Dr. Oz wants to say something, and they'll say the meat of whatever's being said, and then thank him, dear leader, and pass it off. He'll pass it off to somebody else. And then when it's all done, he'll take a couple of questions where he'll say the same stuff, muscle memory answers, and then they'll shuffle everybody out before he ever gets up out of the chair. And, they did this with Roosevelt. It would not surprise me in certain circumstances. I don't know what they were covering for when George H.W. Bush barfed on the Japanese leader, except maybe he was new to sushi, right?
That was amazing.
Yeah. And so, but since then, there doesn't seem to be a single thing. Yeah, everything is just tightening around him. They're narrowing his public appearances, what he says, his speeches at these rallies. He's been doing, I guess rallies for candidates. They're trying to really, because they know they're screwed in the midterm. So he's got to get out there and start pushing because he's not on the ballot. So they're telling him, you're not on the ballot. You got to get out there and you got to stand by these candidates so that they get, or you're going to get impeached and removed. If we lose the Senate, that's the thing. And that's what's really getting him up. But it doesn't mean just because he is doing it, doesn't mean he can do it. And so he's
not doing it particularly
not doing it well. Right. Yeah. And so they're also doing the same thing at these rallies. He's having other people come up and say more than he ever has in the past, except after his initial strokes, I think, when he was like, let's just listen to music. Remember that business? Right? Yeah. We're like, and everybody's like, oh my God, it's terrible. He's standing there and he's just playing Ave Maria like a moron, and it's embarrassing and stupid. And why would he do that? Because whatever he would say instead would be worse.
Yeah.
That's why. It's the same thing with like the Epstein files. Why would he take so much heat from his own side releasing the Epstein files? He promised to do it. He might lose his, half of MAGA if he did that. Will he lose all of them if he released the stuff? If all of it came out, it's worse. That's the only reasoning that makes sense. It's the only reason you would put your personal lawyer in as the AG, specifically because he was in charge of Operation Epstein clampdown. So and so this is something that Republicans are having to deal with leading into the midterm. So the big question was, and we got to take a break, Johnny Million, the word on the street is that there seem to be two schools of thought amongst Republicans about the president's health. And this is not me wishing this. This is not me insisting on this or stating this as a plus or a minus. I'm going to say this is, I guess, as clinically as I possibly can. Yes.
Clinically, yeah.
Right. Is that there are those who hope he kicks before the midterms or becomes incapacitated so much by massively incapacitated beyond even where he is now, right before the midterms or close to it, but before, so that they can say, if you don't show up at the polls, poor Trump, who gave his health, his life, he's been through so much, it takes a toll. It destroyed him. And if you don't show up at the polls and vote for Republicans, and especially all the candidates that he supported, you are going to watch as his legacy gets washed away. Right? And then there are those that hope it happens specifically after the election, before January, because that legally allows, I think, J.D. Vance to have 2 terms after the next year, the next 2 years. So there's their window. This is the fight going on right now. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. People keep saying he's not going anywhere. He's staying till 2028. No, it's not happening. And it's not for a lack of wanting. Even if he wants to, ain't happening, folks. It's not happening. Not happening. He's not physically capable. It's not happening. For real. And MAGA has soured on him. So even like if he tried to run, what are you going to do? Run against Obama? If he can run again, so can Obama. Like, who? Right. Good Lord. And just his recognition of that is, or lack of recognition of that, I should say, is bizarre. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Housemark Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's let's see. Yeah.
Not a fan.
My let's see.
You're what?
I'm looking up I'm opening up an article. Hold on. Because one of the things, I don't know if you saw this. Hold on. Was Trump does this thing where he goes at that same one where he said not long enough. He held up this report that said prescription drug prices have recorded the sharpest drop in more than 60 years.
I love it when he does that stuff.
Oh, it's so good. And the whole thing was like, gotcha, right? And what was it that caused the drop? Was it Trump RX? Yeah. I mean, come on. I'll address what honestly, Johnny May, do you have a theory on what caused the sharp drop, the 3.1%, 2.7% in drug prices overall, 3.1% in prescription drug prices?
No, I have no idea.
Excellent. I will quiz you about that specifically.
Cool.
Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. Get ready. Have an answer on hand.
No idea.
Have a guess. We'll try and do it. It's
okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This will be. Oh, the guests muted themselves. I guess we got 30 seconds, something like that. I don't know why.
Yeah, you got there. Now.
Okay, thank you. So this, I mean, it should be fairly clear, like that. Trump holds up this image, holding up the headline from the fake news Washington Post.
Because facts matter.
Now let's get back with Hellspark's radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Johnny Million, you watch any the YouTube shows that have been on for a long time, that have been around, like the Mr. Beasts of the world, or what is it, Good Mystical Morning or Mythical Morning, whatever that one is?
No, I never got into those.
Okay, those guys do a thing called like Will It Popsicle, Will It Deep Fry, like where they take different things food wise and they just
I'm
see
a
if you
fan of
can
that stuff.
make a
Yeah.
popsicle out of it. Pickle juice, Will It Popsicle, that kind of stuff. And then they try them on camera, and and then you watch their reaction. Okay, whatever, those kind of things. All right. I I I want one of those things that's kind of like um uh will it fake news? Like that kind of thing. Like, is it fake news or isn't it? Is it establishment media or isn't it? Is it legacy media that's out of touch with the people or isn't it? Because in this very same week, I have seen Democracy Now! And Donald Trump both cite the Washington Post with equal assuredness. Now, it
I
could
have to
possibly.
confess, Hal, I cheated. I had to Google.
Oh, you rat. Why would
I
you?
had to.
Okay. I was going to
Because I was
ask you.
embarrassed that I didn't know.
So Trump says we had the biggest drop in pharmaceutical prices in 60 years. And my joke was like, I'm pretty sure that's when thalidomide went off the market. It was going for bargain basement prices. It was really expensive until it wasn't. But it went down 3.1% year over year, right? And Donald Trump wants credit for that because Trump RX, which everybody knows is a combination of two things. One, the exact same coupon rate that Good RX gives, and bulk buying by the federal government of stuff behind the scenes using the Defense Production Act and pretending it's for national security to have all these things so that they could sell them cheaply or at a discount because of the bulk purchase, so that they could have a coupon attached to it. It's so stupid. Like Trump RX, you have to print out a coupon and take it to the pharmacy with you. Like, if it's the program, why do you need the coupon? What are you talking about? It's just dumb. All right. So is it because of that, though? No. It's because of two things. One is generics, generic drug competition. When there were a whole host of drugs that suddenly cleared the generic window in the last year and a half. That's what it was. That just timing from years ago, before even Trump's presidency. I think these probably go back to midway through Obama or late Obama, about a decade ago or 15 years ago, depending on what the patent length of it is, whatever. But a bunch of those, they reached the generic level where you can buy generics now, and in mass, huge dump of those. And then, of course, the GLP-1s. Ladies and gentlemen, is what Donald Trump calls the fat drug. Now, when Trump wants to take credit for something, with a candidate or something, like that guy he was 20 points behind, and then I told everybody he was great, and he won like a rocket ship. He soared, and his numbers, and nobody's ever seen anything like it, right? We hear this all the time.
Nobody's ever seen it.
If I get behind something and I say it's great, everybody wants a piece of it. I'm the greatest salesman in the world. The two primary reasons why drug prices went down in the way that they did was the law around generics, which, by the way, is largely pushed by Democrats. Republicans hate it. They, especially the free market Republicans that are like the people who believe. What was that guy who Martin Skrillick or whatever who bought a drug that was a commonly needed drug and jacked the price to $1,200 a dose and that kind of stuff. They think, if you can do it, it's your right. You should be able to do it, and the market will punish you if they don't like it after everybody dies of a curable disease because they can't get treatment, obviously. But it's so Republicans are generally anti-generic. And Donald Trump does nothing but mock GLP-1s. He can't bring them. And by the way, he's on one. I guarantee it. He's on
Wow, he is?
retatrutide. Yes, he's on retatrutide. I think they're microdosing it because it can give you heart palpitations if you already have an issue with that. And so they would.
So that's it doesn't look great.
Well, here's the thing. It's he may be on semaglutide. He might be on which one's, yeah, the Mounjaro one, the second gen. But there was a compassionate use by Eli Lilly for a man of his age, one single patient with a list of ailments that if you look at Donald Trump, clearly you can see. And he was using, they're dosing him with retatrutide, largely because of its health and anti-aging benefits. I don't know that he does it as regularly as he should. Like, he's a terrible patient is my issue with this. And God knows what else they're doing. And you can't fix someone's rotting brain with that. You can't, it won't uncook your brain from years of, benzos and Adderall and Diet Coke and fourth stage. It doesn't cure fourth stage syphilis, I think. So, but he calls it the fat drug and talks about his friend who's on it, who it was so expensive, and now he wants it's so cheap in England, it's expensive over there, and that's his example. But he's like, you're on the fat drug and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. So if the idea is that he's this salesperson and is responsible for the huge adoption of GLP-1s after calling them the fat drug and saying they don't work, I guess this is just add this to the list of things that maggots just let slide. Like, there's so much other stuff that's worrisome about him. I don't even pay attention to that stuff. It's like when he sexually harasses people now. It's like, that's water under the bridge. That's expected at this point. But you can't hard sell, against a drug and then take credit for when the drop in price because of adoption is what lowered the price of it. It went from $1,300 to like $200 a month because of microdosing and ubiquitous usage across everyone. The production went up, so did supply. Demand stayed steady and is growing at a slower rate. So guess what that does to price? And it's so embarrassing that he'll hold that list up and go, "See what I did? See what I did?" And people will just act as if. We're at the bottom of the hour. We got Phil will be joining us a little bit late because he's in a war zone. So we'll be back right after the top of the hour in the news on the station. This is the Houseworks Radio program, mega worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Now with 100% more, Johnny Million.
That's me.
I've got so much more space for activities. I got this out so I could show it to Phil. My Zelensky doll.
Huh, look at that.
Mm-hmm. It's monsoon season here, and it's been raining like crazy. And yeah,
in the desert, monsoons.
Oh yeah. Vegas has it late August, especially. It's been a little earlier this year, but
Wow.
yeah, it washed all the homeless folks out of one of the there's this drainage tunnel that they camp in, and that's not a good thing. Yeah. And so a lot, I don't think any of them died insofar as I haven't heard any reports here about that, but their stuff was in the road. All this stuff got washed out. Yeah, it's a super El Nino. That is the thing we will talk about, is the super El Nino, which is bigger than a regular El Nino.
That's super.
Mm-hmm. I'll have the soup.
Ah.
Mm-hmm. 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 Oh, look at that. Oh, okay, sorry. Okay. I was like, stream went off. I'm like, no, it's just Instagram cutting off after an hour.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
weird.
Like I get, it like being, I understand they don't want it nonstop, but a single hour seems a little rude at this point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then I'm gonna bring this up. Hold on. We will look at the Super El Nino. Mm-hmm. I gotta say the climate people, when they're talking about like El Nino or Super El Nino, the fact that they
Mhm.
use a scale from like yellow to red all the time
Mhm.
doesn't help, right?
And it was
Because
weird with the air quality when like purple started to be worse than red. I
yeah,
didn't know how to handle it.
right. Because they run out, like people. It's
They
almost
ran
like
out. It's like
crying
that plan
wolf.
ahead meme.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is and it's everything I've seen is that it lines up closer to the one we had in 97, I believe it was. Um there was one in the 80s that was worse actually than the one
When what?
in um worse than the one in the 90s, but the 90s one is kind of the one everybody remembers because it got more coverage.
Mm.
Yeah. Let's see. And this is always an issue. One of these things. Yeah, El Nino is headed for a record-shattering intensity.
Mm.
And again, the movement across the temperature spectrum where they deal with the averages, and they're like, this is the hottest average on record, where there's actually been several that were hotter, everywhere, but they didn't average. They spiked. It was like it's warmer everywhere across these areas, but there were other times when it was just like in inhuman temperatures in places. And so you lower the temperature of those places and spread it out a little thinner. The argument is that better or worse, you know, if we all are a little warmer versus people in Sudan are being cooked alive if they go outside.
Yeah.
For 30 seconds.
Thank you.
But yo,
WCPT from TuneIn.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you if the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Puss-faced little pimp stick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
so Johnny, do you do the prescription, the prediction markets, any of those kind of things? Do you bet on
Nah.
those? Yeah, I don't
No,
either.
I don't bet on anything. I am a recovering alcoholic.
Right. I chose a life in the theater and I did very well. So and that was my one gamble. So I'm walking
Yeah,
away from
that's
the
your big bet.
table.
You're rolling the dice every day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so I don't need to hedge my bet in that regard or against it. Um, and so when they talk about the chances of this and the chances of that, I always take them with a grain of salt, especially as people over time get better at manipulating those things. Between people moving to Iowa to be professional political class people, knowing that and if I live there for, every 3 years or so, we're going to start gearing up for a new election thing so I can get ahead of that curve and make a living doing what I'm doing. And so setting the tone ahead of time by just moving in as opposed to or drafting your message based on we know Iowa's first. So we're going to talk to Iowa first and then we'll talk to the rest of the country later, and that shifts the terms of a debate, the terms of what candidates can stand and what ones can't possibly. Even if it's a small win to start with, that little win meant a lot. And it would affect people's chances. And when it would go off, people would go, the establishment has stepped in and saved them in North Carolina, like with Biden or Clinton. And you're like, no, it's just bigger and there's a lot more people there. And the little place is easier for the manipulators to move into and kind of prime their way through it. So you got to take those things with a grain of salt and you got to weigh them against what the greater electorate wants and that kind of stuff. And the same thing is true of, people predicting the rise of cryptocurrency. Oh my goodness. From Doge to the moon, from Elon Musk to Scaramucci was doing that. He was pushing the
Oh
Doge to the
yeah, I forgot
moon.
about him.
He was talking about $1 million Bitcoin for a while. Now, bless his heart, my guess would be that he was kind of elbowing the market ahead. He knew it wasn't there. But if people are listening to you and the market moves when you say something, maybe you can Jim Cramer your way into making this. You can use the greater fool theory, drive the price up, and get out before everybody realizes the bag is empty, right? And there have been back and forths over the years about predictions about the environment, what will cause global warming, what those factors and the variability in the climate versus variability in the weather has been one of the big talking points amongst the general MAGA tree, especially why I think climate change shows up as the last issue for Republicans. It's only 14% think it's a serious issue, something along those lines. And I've said for a long time that these are the folks that you cannot talk to about climate because it's like denying God to them. God handles the Earth's atmosphere and the shape of the Earth itself. God picks whether the volcano erupts or not, and throwing a virgin in won't necessarily help. I don't, you can't interrupt God's plan about that. But you
Okay.
can, talk to them about weather, and you could, and you can, they can understand mitigatory behaviors when they are located to it's their local environment. They understand soot. They can understand pollution. They can understand the car in front of you or the truck is pumping black smoke out of its pipes. You can smell it coming through your vents. That's probably not healthy. They have a weird write-off about coal miners, which I don't understand. That they're, like that the salt of the earth, because I guess to power industry, we must salt the earth with their corpses. But if you try to talk to them about climate change, they'll never grasp it. But they do understand pollution. They do understand some degree of weather prep. The problem is that the distance between, hey, you probably shouldn't live in a flood zone or a tornado alley. It's been happening again and again. It is, I had that bit for years, and in my stand-up act, it's like, we're going to
I remember
rebuild.
this.
Don't you mean repark, right? Because that's who lives. Trailer parks live in those areas because people know after a while not to build a house there.
Yeah.
That's why there's trailer parks there. That's why that land is open. It looks really pretty. It's really nice. However, every 2.5 to 3 years, the wind gets mad and throws everything, into a canyon or whatever. And so they can understand that in theory, that when it's regular, a flood zone, a tornado alley, perhaps just we have hard winters here, perhaps the heavy rains, like the monsoon season here in Vegas. They can grasp that. The the crisscross of the uncomfortable reality we find ourselves in is where the climate part they don't understand shifts the weather part they thought they understood. And so we had these huge floods in Ohio and Indiana over the last week. The most water that's ever gone through these areas. It was the White River, aptly named, I have no doubt. Destroying homes in areas that had never seen flooding like this before, right? And Trump loves that phrase, like you've never seen before. Well,
like you've never seen before.
Yes. Undeniable weather events caused by the climate heating and shifting the weather patterns as the Earth tries to remedy its problem. Because that's one of the things that we don't, we don't really factor in. And I think Carlin was like, we got to save the planet. We can't even save ourselves. We're going to save the planet. The planet's going to shake us off like a bad, case of fleas, right? And go right on being the planet, right? There's an element of that mismatch of the climate itself moving weather systems in an unprecedented way, which causes these folks to question not only their reality, but their projection of themselves in terms of reality. I don't believe in climate change, therefore I will, the old joke about the guy who's, it's flooding, the rains are coming down, and the water finally gets up, and he's not leaving, and the water gets up to his porch, and a guy comes by in a little rowboat and says, get in the boat, the dam's going to break, you're going to die. And he goes, God will save me. And the water keeps rising. That another guy comes by in a speedboat, going, "This is it. Like all your neighbors are gone. We can't get you out of here. This is my last trip. Get in the boat." And the guy goes, "God will save me." Ends up standing on the chimney. A helicopter comes by and says, "Grab the ladder. We'll pull you out of here." And the guy says, "Don't worry about it. God will save me." He dies and stomps soaking wet up to St. Peter, and says, "I would like to speak to God, please. I have a complaint." And he goes up to God and he goes, "God, I trusted in you. I believed in you. I had faith in you, and you let me drown." And God said, "Moron, I sent 2 boats and a helicopter." And that sums up the circumstance that we find ourselves in with the right in terms of climate change, which brings us to the perhaps super El Nino. In an updated release Thursday, national forecasters said the odds that this year's El Nino will reach the highest strength level, often called a super El Nino, and again, I take issue with the word often because it's like once every 2 decades, maybe they have one that qualifies, are now higher than 90%. The climate phenomenon has been gaining steam since it arrived on the scene earlier this summer, and it's expected to keep building strength through the end of the year. Both El Nino and its counterpart, La Nina, typically reach peak strength in the winter months. This year, the peak looks likely to come between October and December. During that time frame, there's a 69% chance this year's El Nino will become the strongest since 1950. Climate Prediction Center said. Yeah. For summer weather, that would fuel a super hot season. For some parts of the country, that has transpired already. We've been in it. The Southeast is also bracing for a heat dome this week. In the late summer and fall, El Nino also tends to suppress storms and hurricanes in the Atlantic. This appears to be the case this year, which has had a quiet start to the hurricane season. But it's really winter when El Nino makes its mark, when it reaches its peak strength in the winter months, and it has its largest impact on the weather in North America. It brings warmer, dry weather up north into the Ohio Valley. Meanwhile, the southern half of the country can expect a wetter winter with more rain and snow. The exact dividing lines moves year to year depending on the position of the jet stream. But high tide flooding could be a bigger problem during El Nino years, have been during El Nino years as well, according to the National Weather Service, especially on the West Coast. Harmful algae also thrive in the West Coast waters during past El Nino events. The above outcomes are not guaranteed, obviously, but that's where the betting market part comes in.
Yeah.
As of Thursday, national forecasters say El Nino looks likely to last into early 2027, and that it could very possibly be a super El Nino. And the image that they put on of everywhere you look will be just yellow, orange, and red, like the ocean is on fire. And the reality is that it is an El Nino when it is a half a degree above the regular temperature, the average temperature, for I think more than 3 months or something along those lines. Forgive me if I'm playing slapdash with this, but it's been 2.5 degrees Celsius higher all since the beginning of the year. And in some areas, it is 4 degrees hotter Celsius. So this is going to have an impact on weather, but it's also going to have impact on preparedness for that weather. And this is the part where Democrats have, I think, mucked up the languaging, and by treating a crisis as an emergency, and they are different things, they have given this sort of cry wolf retort back to Republicans, where they can just say, well, the world warms, it just warms, it just does. That's just a cycle, and then it cools.
That's just how it does.
That's what it does. And by not tempering the message around the reality and focusing on the stuff that is happening, that we're going to have to moderate the geography of our country. And other countries are going to have to do this as well. As the flood zones shift, as tornado alleys shift, as weather patterns move because of these things, their homes that were not prepared for water and wind are going to get a lot of it. And homes that were not prepared for the rivers to run dry are going to experience that. And that's the kind of forward thinking you have to elect. You've got to elect people that aren't just thinking about, like, how do I get reelected for myself, but how do I get reelected so that we can keep on the path of fixing what is broken, that needs constant gardening, or is a longer than 10-year project for the safety of your fellow citizens. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Think Theory Radio.
Dr.
I'm going to mute myself.
Uh-oh. Oh, boy. I don't know. You forgot to mute. What are you doing? Why would you do that? Quit it, Johnny. Oh, it's terrible. He's lucky I don't have the other sound effect on here. It's okay. Oh, well, fine. I'll just hang out with the chat room while he's gone. How do you like them apples? This is that El Nino. One El Nino to the next, the strongest shifts remain fairly constant. Okay. The effects of El Nino event vary significantly around the world, as shown in the Columbia University NOAA graphic. And that's the thing. The variability of it is not something you can guarantee. The extremity of it, you can. But if the extremity doesn't hit the area that you think, or that they project, or what have you, because of a myriad of other factors, Republicans will always use that as an excuse to say it's not happening. It's a farce. It's a hoax. And this is how, and there's some validity. Let me move this over here. There's some validity to the constant changing temperature part. It's just the human factor part that is new.
WCPT from
what we can do about the extremity of it.
This is Damian Perdue of Think Theory Radio, Saturdays at 6 p.m. You're listening to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
One of the things that we see when we're talking about, fixing things long-term and working towards a long-term goal that's required is consistency. Is that you cannot vacillate because progress isn't impressive to you enough. If progress is indeed especially being made, one need only look at the Biden administration, what they put in the Rescue Act, what they put in the infrastructure bill. These were the best environmental checks that were put on. Here, I'll bring in Johnny Mayen, Johnny Mayen with news. There he is. Hey, look at that. Because you can't be a climate change denialist both directions. You can't disregard the nature of weather and climate and the shifting nature of us going from a near ice age and all these phases that the Earth goes to, and admitting that those things do happen, and that, by the way, a lot of global warming's issues in the short term could be limited by one big volcanic eruption. You can argue that Mount St. Helens paused where global warming was going for a while because of its cooling impacts on the atmosphere. It puts particulates in the atmosphere that lowers the temperature. And, you could almost think of it as the Earth doing countermeasures to whenever volcanoes go off, and it cools the atmosphere. It does. And a super volcano would freeze the Earth. That's one of the things they talk about, like the caldera and all that. When, if that one went off, the idea is that the rest of the world that wasn't affected by the impact and the blast and all that stuff would be, the sun would be blocked out by all the particulates in the atmosphere, right? It would reflect it. It would do the opposite of greenhouse. It would reflect it. All right. So, and the forecast models suggest that the super El Nino that we're headed to could even rival, quote, the super El Nino of 1877. Which computer simulations and reanalysis data indicate may have been one of the strongest in recent history. While data limitations from that era introduced some uncertainty, historic records confirm that the 1877 event coincided with several global impacts. The Great Famine of 1876 and 78 through 78 in India, the Great Drought of 77 to 79 in Brazil, the Great Drought of 76 to 78 in China were all primarily attributed to this super El Nino. Compounded by poor crop management and export policies. Well, that's the other thing with China, obviously, there. The combined global agricultural impacts resulted in an estimated 30 million to 60 million deaths. 30 to 60 million people died because of a similar El Nino in 1877. Now, do we have more recourse now to deal with these kind of emergencies? In theory, yeah. However, I'm going to zoom you in, Johnny Mayen.
Whoop. I zoomed out for that other view.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
I was giant. I was obscuring the article.
I will fix you. It's fine. I will if I have an issue with.
Oh
no, it's John Million. Look out! Extreme close up. So, again, it's how we talk about stuff as when stuff is a crisis versus stuff is an emergency. An emergency has to be handled immediately, or it's the end. That's why we have emergency rooms. Critical care units are not emergency rooms. You're on the edge of, you might be an emergency, you might have an emergency come up, but you've stabilized and we need to, we're going to move you upstairs. And again, if you're in the hospital, obviously you have some long-term concerns that are going to require some fixing, and you're going to need some maybe medication, and maybe you're going to need, some surgery or whatever. But you're out of the woods and you're not in the emergency room is the point. And so when we talk about these things, and that's where the Greta Thunbergs of the world have done more, I think, harm than good long term to the environmental concerns that we all have, is that they don't make a distinction between a crisis, a climate crisis, which we absolutely have, and a climate emergency, which you cannot solve it quickly. So what happens when you present it as an emergency? What can you do, Johnny Million, today to solve a climate emergency? Like it's like asking you to punch a tornado to change its direction, right?
I like my
Nothing.
chances.
Right. Now, for most of us, I think, when we hear those terms, we mitigate them in our heads and we moderate what it means by emergency. We understand it's not, a tornado warning, but we get that there's something we gotta correct our course. It's more like the Titanic headed towards an iceberg. Then we've already hit it and it's time to jump ship. Right? That's the emerging crisis. And I think a lot of us think in those terms. Right wingers do not. If you say something's an emergency, um, and they buy it even temporarily, the minute it's no longer an emergency, it's not just that that passed or we've got more work to do or this is a symptom of a greater thing that's going to grow and we need to tamp it down. It's you're a liar. You're manipulating me. There's the Illuminati is behind fake climate science, and that's where they go. I'm not kidding.
No.
Mix that with the variability of science, the reality that we're talking about, so many moving parts that you can read data a dozen different ways. There's a lot of opportunities to pretend it's not happening until it's too late. And that's what we're running into with the climate issues, especially in impoverished parts of red states, where they are actively ignoring this and they're not taking any mitigating actions at all. And these people are not going to actually realize that this is a real threat until there's like brown river water in their bedroom while they're, what they're going to wake up to that, rolling through the window. There was a couple that I'll never forget, in the mudslides in California, which happen all the time because, the California coast falls into the ocean like a slower than a glacier. But the idea is it's like a Pez dispenser. Just pieces of it fall off and the tectonic plate, shoving it that direction, pieces are going to fall off. And there were, we get rains, mudslides, and fires almost in a cycle, almost like nature has a plan for how to cook off this land and put it in the ocean, burn down all the stuff that's holding the land together with fires. Then the water comes in and loosens the dirt, and then the tectonic plate dumps it into the ocean. And there was a couple in up near Malibu or something, is sleep in their beds, window over their bed, and a mudslide from the hill came into the bedroom and buried them alive while they were asleep, filled their bedroom to the ceiling with mud. They weren't found for a long time, and they were effectively Pompeii'd inside there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And I got to say, there needs to be a renewed, on our part, a renewed sensibility about how we discuss these issues, where we never back down, but we don't use panic as the cudgel. We deal with reality and people who intend to plan for the future and care for our fellow human beings, even if they live in a red state downriver from a dam that nobody's serviced in years. That's got to be a crucial part of the conversation. Otherwise, those floodwaters are coming to a neighborhood near you. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Dive deeper into the.
So we're still waiting on Phil. I hope he's all right. I mean, he might be in a, he might be sheltering.
Did you see that meme when Lollapalooza was in Chicago that people people over 25 are advised to shelter in place until Lollapalooza is over?
Right. Yeah, and then they're kind of not wrong. There he is. Oh, excellent. Okay, good.
What?
Cool. There he is.
Hey, yo.
And now I think got him in guest 3, and that should put him in this guy. Hey, there he is. Hey, Phil.
Hi, up.
Hey, Phil.
Looking good, man. You are in another location.
I'm in Odessa.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Oh, wow.
Well, it's going to be a difficult fall and winter, and it's kind of at the end of the season here. So I thought I'd come down and get a little R&R. So we're taking a break this week.
Right. Gotcha.
That's a real mugshot background you got going there.
Yeah, well, I could change it.
Nope.
You want to
see?
Right. You want to
Your
see
beard
Odessa?
looks perfect, though.
You want to see Odessa?
Where's he going?
I don't know if you
There's
can see
Odessa.
that.
Ah, look at that.
Right.
No more mugshot.
Where facts matter.
It's a little jumpy. Something that we had a little gremlin issue. This is so. Yeah.
Yep.
There we go. Better.
Check two.
All right.
Check
Well,
two.
there you go.
in and
Check.
out.
Now I hear you. Sounds good. Now you're better.
Ah, now it's good.
Okay.
Coming
That's
back.
this is
we're
what we
solid.
get for
Look
all
at
we did was look at Odessa, and look what happened. So Phil is joining us from Odessa right now. And if he hadn't shared that, I wouldn't have shared it. What are you doing down there? How are you? What's it like down there? We've talked many times about how, for Russia to take Ukraine, Russia has to take Odessa or claim it, as their own because of its importance as a port, as both,
And
strategically,
dominion
culturally.
over the dominion over the Black Sea, which is really what they need because they've always sought a warm water port. So without taking Odessa, they can never be secure in their dominion of the Black Sea. And so that's why it's one of their primary, if not the one of two of their primary strategic goals, the other one being setting up a puppet government in Kiev, neither of which, by the way, I think they have the capacity to do. Things here in Odessa are fine. People are tired. I did see some ships. I saw some tankers moving in the sea, which is good to see that there are at least some lines that are still open. As I say, it's kind of the end of the season here for kind of coming and but people are still coming here. By the way, that's also people come here from all around Ukraine, even though this is a big target, because people need to relax. And Odessa is a beautiful city, historic city with wonderful temperatures and infrastructure and seaside restaurants and clubs and things like that. I know that sounds frivolous in a time of war, but mental health is a really important thing. So I kind of decided that, again, I have a deep concern that we're going to go through a very, very difficult fall and winter. I think the Russians are going to pound Kiev as they have been. So I decided, you know what, I'm just going to take a minute before we go into fall and winter, and I'm going to take a little mental health break and come here and swim, swim, eat some good fish.
Right. Well, I hope you get to, and that's a wonderful thing. And you look great. The question is, I guess for most people is the rest of the country is because you've talked about the last couple times we've spoken about how tired everybody is, and I think there is this kind of like wishing it was over kind of thing that maybe Russia hopes that we'll wait them out. They were planning, and that languaging has been one of the things that they've been selling back and forth. That like we're almost near the end. They're going to give up. They're going to tap out anytime. Same thing Trump says about Iran.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that's not going to happen. Just because they're tired doesn't mean that they've abandoned the recognition that Moscow is an imperial power. If it ever gains control here again, The repercussions will be horrible for this country. Russia wants nothing more than the absolute ethnic cleansing of this country. They've stated it openly. They're not hiding it. They say they want to destroy Ukrainian identity. So faced with that, no matter how tired you become, the Ukrainians will not stop fighting Moscow ever. I don't think. I mean, I think that changed on Maidan in 2014. Frankly, I don't think it was the war. I think the war has exasperated it because of the cruelty. Yes, exacerbated. Sorry, that the Russians have inflicted on this country. There's no going back from some of the things that the Russians have done during this war. So, even though I think the Rubicon was crossed in 2014, and the idea of being a subject of an empire was abandoned back then, I think the cruelty of the war has solidified that with Ukrainians. And I as exhausted as they are, I don't ever see them abandoning the fight against Russia.
Right. The obviously there's a lot to talk about with the economy of Russia, and I think one of the weirdest, yes, but one of the things I want to bring up before we get into that stuff, and hey, Boston Brian, in the chat room, was that former Prime Minister Boris Johnson publicly recounted a conversation with a senior official in the German Chancellor's office that took place on the eve of the full-scale invasion. And he said, a senior official in the German Chancellor's office told me before the invasion, wouldn't it be better if everything happened quickly? The Ukrainians lost, and that was the end of it. I categorically disagreed, and I still believe he was wrong. The idea was that the Germans were hoping that this would go quickly in the same way that Trump was expecting this to go quickly. Like, one of the reasons why I always, when he says this war wouldn't have happened if I was there, because it wouldn't have been a war. They never would have gotten a chance. They would have been wiped out. That's not a war. It would have been an instant invasion and you're done, right? And that's what he really means. So,
yeah, well, first and foremost, I've always had my suspicions about the German leadership when it comes to this war. I think they wouldn't have minded terribly if Ukraine did fall to the Russians, because Ukraine is going to be a threat to them. Their GDP will be, it may not be tomorrow, it may not be 5 years or a decade, but eventually Ukraine is going to be an absolute powerhouse when it comes to agriculture, IT, military industrial might, inventiveness, all the things, tourism, all the things that Ukraine has to offer is going to be, and the balance of power in Europe might very well shift from a Franco-German balance of power to a Polish-Ukrainian balance of power. The Baltics in there as well. And I think the Germans were, mindful of that. Secondly, I also agree that the idea that this war could have been avoided is a foolish one. Russia was always going to come for this country. It is the cornerstone of their sense of self as an empire, and so that's a silly thing to say that any president. Sometimes we have to recognize that we are not the end all be all on the globe. That some things happen independent of our participation, and one of those things is Moscow's desire to have dominion over Ukraine. It was going to happen no matter what. It was always going to happen. After 2014, it was always going to happen. And I have in an episode of On the Edge, I have a interview with the last Ukrainian ambassador to Moscow, and he saw Putin doing what he was about to do, and knowing that he was a diplomat and he was trying to stop the war, but he had to come to the conclusion that Putin was dead set on it.
Right.
To his detriment, Putin signed his own death warrant with it, but he was determined to do it.
Right. And this, we went over this in the very beginning when you and I first started talking, was that I was one of the people that, the Biden administration was specifically calling Zelensky and going, look, this is going to happen. And everybody poo-pooed it. I remember everybody from I guess from Rusty Trombone, Russell Brand to like people on CNN to
Don't you miss him, Russell Brand?
yeah, don't you? Well, he's
No.
all over he's doing his big Christian cleanup campaign. Like, find Jesus in prison before you go
Love
is the new
those.
strategy, right?
Love
But
those.
he, they were all going, it's not going to happen. This is all just warmongers wanting to start a war with Russia are pushing this, and to some degree, they pushed that after the fact. Like, it was the people who took this threat seriously that drove Russia to actually do it, which is the dumbest thing in the world. Because if you're planning a surprise attack and somebody's onto your surprise attack, or they bring it up, it's no longer you just wouldn't do it. You're like, oh, they see what I'm trying to do, and but the idea is that they were out of time. They had to do it because they're demographically they're out of time. They were like wearing out their welcome with everybody in Europe except maybe the Germans. Right.
Well, they'd had they'd had their invasion force sitting there in a simulated exercise for already several months, and the way they bivouac their soldiers in the field, they couldn't have just sat there forever.
Right.
And the encroaching, if you remember when the war started, it started in February. We were headed into the Rasputitsa, another 6 weeks and those roads would have been mud. So that's another reason why they had to go when they went. So yeah, it's ridiculous. That's this idea that this war could have been stopped by anybody. Frankly, Putin was not just Putin. The Russian establishment, the Russian power elite, they wanted this war desperately. Because they want their empire back. They really want their empire back. They're still very upset about losing their empire. So this war was going to happen. And the reason why, the fact that it was Boris Johnson now saying this, I know there are going to be people who bring up the whole, there was a peace agreement in Istanbul. And we were all ready to do it. And then Boris Johnson came in and he told Zelensky, don't stop fighting. Two things. That period of time was like less than 6 weeks after the discovery of Bucha,
right?
The massacre of Bucha. Okay,
yeah.
The Ukrainian people were furious. I think if Zelensky had agreed to a peace deal in Istanbul in late spring or whenever it is that Boris Johnson came here with that whole thing, I think the Ukrainian people would have risen up and deposed Zelensky. I think there's a very good possibility for that. And secondly, what the guys who do this whole conspiratorial thing about Johnson's visit and demanding that Ukraine continue to fight Russia, to bleed them to death to the last Ukrainian, what they failed to recognize, and this was public knowledge at the time, Boris Johnson didn't just come over, sit down across the table from Zelensky and say, you've got to keep fighting because of all these other conspiratorial reasonings that people say. No, Boris Johnson came to Zelensky to deliver Five Eyes satellite imagery showing that the Russians were not sincere in their desire for a ceasefire. All they wanted to do was reform their landing forces so that they could make another run at Odessa.
Right.
And he showed the landing vessels. He showed the formation of the flotilla. He showed, Russian Marines that were in Crimea ready to get on boats, and it's like, they're not sincere. They're not being honest players. The Russians, because again, and it always comes back to it. And I wish those guys understood this war better, because of course they always think that everything that's wrong in the world is always the CIA. It's always the United States. No, this is so much less to do with us than it has to do with a dying empire desperate to hold on to its little, colonial holdings. That's what this is about. It's not about the United States or the West or whatever trying to bleed. Now, there might be elements in the West that kind of have an ancillary kind of idea of that, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is the Ukrainians don't want to be controlled by Moscow anymore. They haven't for a very long time. That's what this war is about. It's not anything more sinister or conspiratorial than that. Moscow wants its empire back, and its empire says no.
the Polish prime minister announced that there had been a Russian sent in to kill an American citizen with a Ukrainian passport in Poland. And this I mean, we've obviously seen this in London. We've seen it in Germany. The Russians continue to do this all the time. And Trump's answer has always been, well, we kill people too. Like, and what he means is like Soleimani. And I got to say, there is a huge difference between an airstrike nobody can miss, and you have to defend to everybody that
We also know the Russians are giving the Iranians targeting information.
Info on and he shrugged that off as well.
And what has the president of the United States done about that?
Yeah,
God forbid he upsets his master Putin.
Right, exactly. The question is though, is that the increasing stampede of maggots away from him, the rats leaving the sinking ship that apparently seems to be growing. Some of it is tied to this stuff and a new realization. We covered the Loomer thing, last week, but it's a real phenomenon that extends past her. And this is one of those things. It's the cut under Drago's eye. It's they've reached a point where it's harder for him to look strong and in control and all this stuff when it's clearly a lot of flailing going on. Let's take a break. And when we come back, I'd love to hear as part of the happy ending, like how long you get to be there, what your sort of guests are for On the Edge and that kind of stuff. We'll be back right after this.
Choose Views with Richard Jew.
We love Richard Jew. Ukraine hit
I do have a couple questions for Phil.
Oh, good.
Too.
Yeah, excellent.
One I'll ask before we're on the air because it's silly. Phil, Jimmy Two Soups. I mean, it's not silly, but it's fun. Ask Phil how many ladies come onto him for his fabulous facial hair. I mean, how can you really know why someone comes onto you? But
because they you're in a foreign country. Wait, I can answer this question. I can answer this question.
You're the exotic newcomer.
You're in a foreign country, and they don't necessarily know you speak the language. And they use the word for whatever they like about you, or and you hear it. I mean, I have heard that. I've heard that happens, to some
Sexy
people when
Santa?
they travel. Yeah, when they. It's just what you.
I don't think Phil's frozen. I think he's being bashful.
No, I'm reading something.
Yeah.
Reading something the way a sexy Santa would.
Children.
Uh-huh.
Children?
Children love Santa.
You are listening to WCPT 820.
I am happy, you are happy. Let us be happy together. Whether the weather is cloudy or sunny, I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky. Let us get lucky together. Whether the weather is cloudy or breezy, I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. Because isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you? Chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling. Let us smile together. Whether the weather is cloudy or stormy, I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Yay! Thank you so much. I think, quite frankly, the happy ending this week is that Phil is actually in a place where he's taking care of himself, and I hope you have. What's the fish dish? What can we hope for you?
Oh, yeah.
I had sea bass, I had broiled sea bass for lunch today. So.
Lovely. Broiled sea bass. That's nice. So, and Johnny has some questions for you. So let's jump into those. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've got a couple from Ed Brayman. He's always good with questions. Can you ask Philip if Ukraine gained massive territory yesterday?
There's been some talk of them making some advances along the Dnipropetrovsk, Zaporizhia, Donetsk line. So that's kind of midway down the river. The Russians have been trying to push into the fortress cities, which are in the north of Donbass. So I think the Ukrainians took advantage of that, and it does seem like they've made some advances. But again, these lines are not going to move in enormous, 100-kilometer sudden surges. But yeah, it looks like they're pushing back. That they have an effective counteroffensive going on in that area of the eastern bank of the Dnieper River.
Yeah, according to Ukrainians, they July was their Russia's highest casualty month in the war so far. So, like 3,998 Russian vehicles were struck. A lot of them troop carriers. The number of troops. Let me look this up. 42,860 killed or seriously wounded in July alone.
Yeah.
And Moscow has not sustained losses on that scale since January of 2025. The number that they've reached of dead and seriously wounded is 1.46 million people. They've lost 13,998 cars, trucks, and motorcycles in July, a record for the full-scale war. So not only are the injuries and deaths on the Ukrainian side going down precipitously, largely because of the drone war that they're participating in, and they have sort of reinvented the warscape for themselves. But the number of Russians dying on the other end of that has doubled. When Trump talks about his 25,000 a month, 28,000 a month, there was 25. He keeps talking about that. Last month, July, was 42,000 in Russians plus.
Yeah. Well, and they've got parliamentary elections coming up in September. One party that ran on a platform of ending the war has been kicked off the ballot. But that's an indication that there is growing dissatisfaction in Russia with the war and a desire for peace. What many Ukrainians are concerned about is that after the parliamentary elections, that Putin will say that gives him a mandate to conduct another large-scale mobilization, maybe as much as 100,000 more Russian soldiers. Obviously, they will not be well trained, and there'll be more cannon fodder, but that's a lot of people to be putting on the line. And, we'll have to see. But it is interesting to see that there was a party in Russia that was vying to be put on the ballot and got some very good internet support, a party called Yabloko, which ran on a platform first and foremost of ceasefire in the war. So maybe the Russians are the ones who are getting tired.
Yeah. And since you are a dual British citizen, I'm sure you were following the fact that Nigel Farage, won his election, but only because he was running against Count Binface. For those that haven't seen this is Count Binface is the guy who he was running against. In case you haven't seen him, he has a trash can head, and he wears this outfit, and that's really the guy who was running. And this has been something I've loved about England since I was a kid watching Monty Python on PBS when I was a kid on KET. The whole Tarkin, Fintim, Limbim, Ole, Biscuit Barrel, Fatang, Ole, Biscuit Barrel. Yeah.
Silly party.
Silly party. Not. Yay. So this,
kind of silly party. Yeah.
Yes. Slightly
there's a long
silly.
tradition of this.
That kind of stuff. Tradition. But of also just like mocking the candidates by doing that. And it's interesting. I think it's actually an offshoot of the lack of freedom of speech. Technically, a First Amendment, and you don't technically have that. So direct criticism is a little harder to do sometimes. The laws are a little bit more stringent around that kind of stuff, and you can be walking a fine line. But you can satire someone and get away with it because you're really making jokes while, dressing silly and making fun of yourself, right? So it actually births, whereas the American comedy came directly out of stand-up comedy, which is, you could say, the First Amendment in its most active form. Whereas like political satire and the incredible strength of political satire that came out of England came partly out of not really being able to say it directly. You gotta kind of hedge what you're saying and play characters and that kind of stuff. And so it's always brought about that part of it. And I think it's it's another valuable version of the freedom of speech, just exercising itself through different navigating around the beaver dams, as it were. But I'm sure he would have had Binface would have had my vote in this particular instance, considering Nigel Farage. Do we have another question, Johnny?
We do. I've got one here again from Ed, where he's asking, could you ask Philip about the flamingos reaching Samara Assembly area?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's 2,000 kilometers, I believe. Mm-hmm. I mean, what's even more impressive is the fact that apparently they hit a train filled with North Korean troops and ballistic missiles 3,000 miles away. It's my understanding that was sabotage. I don't think they actually hit it with a munition. I think that was sabotage. We're still getting. I haven't read up on the entire thing, but apparently they did do it. So they didn't even wait for the North Korean soldiers to arrive. They got them when they were on the train.
Yep, and it also says a lot about why Putin did an appearance or posted this, like it did an appearance with Kim Jong-un, almost like an apology in some ways, like sorry about your dudes on that train and or whatever. And then Trump just posted a picture of him with Kim Jong-un at the same time. Like last night or early this morning or whatever, Trump posted a picture of himself with Kim Jong-un to match. I suppose seeing this story or a variation of it, where Putin promised Kim Jong-un to build a democratic world order together, which is just hilarious. Like, it's absurd that they're going to build a democracy. We're out of time, but I want to remind everybody, On the Edge is Phil's show. I'm guessing you're taking the week off. So you're
taking the week off,
which is
but
good.
We've already got guests lined up for the next 2 weeks, so we'll be.
That's fine. Excellent. All right. Well, good luck with that. Have a swell trip. Stay safe and get some R&R.
I'll be back. I should be back in Kiev in time on Wednesday to join.
Great.
You, so.
Excellent. And Johnny Million, you're awesome. And he's got a channel. It's Johnny Million on YouTube and Twitch. And infotainmentwars.com will let you subscribe. Blah, blah, blah. Bye. There we go.
The station that put.
Yeah. Thank you, Chicago.
Yay, Phil.
Thanks, Chicago.
Yep. And good news, Phil. I'm glad you're getting some R&R. Please take care of yourself. And stay healthy.
I'll talk to you.
Yeah. Okay. And Johnny Million.
All right, man.
Yeah. Okay. Cheers. Just put me and Johnny. I'll see you later, man. You're just awesome. I just want to remind you that you're awesome. And he's back on.
There we go.
It's
true. I like that better.
Yeah. Well, because you're sticking out of the digital waterfall. It's like you're submerged. Yeah. It's good. Crawling out. He's escaping. He's getting out. It's like those garden zombies. It's like half a face.
Yeah, I love those.
I do too. I love those. I so want those. Like, that's going to be my entire yard for Halloween this year.
Yeah, why just Halloween?
Good point. Touche, my friend. Touche. All right, I'm gonna let you go. Big hug. Hope to see you soon. I'm very very upset that I didn't get to go to Tori Amos with you, but
you may still.
I will go. It could happen.
Her date's there.
Yeah, if she rolls back through, I'll fly in for it just to see it with you. Come on, man.
Wild.
Bye.
Tori.
Hold on.
Amos.
He's
back. I'll send you an update.
There he is. Oh, you're not Philip. Hold on. You're that. There you go. Thank you. Yes, send me an update. All right. I adore you. Okay. I will see you later. Bye.
Love you. Bye, chat. Bye, everybody.
Bye. And then... Yeah, I don't know what everything was fine today except for that little gremlin. Yeah, he can hold you at the show. Thanks. That's very sweet, Cat Fam. Absolutely. Oh, you went to Tori Amos too? Whoops, I shrunk myself. Honey, I shrunk the me. Quit it. Enoch Chuck. There we go. That's better. I still got studio work to do, so I got stuff to put together. So hit the like, share the show, blah blah blah. I got some more honeydew lists to do for summer, so I got to run over to the old house and I have to take down a shelf, and I didn't have the proper Allen. It uses an Allen wrench. And I did not have the proper size, so I've got to return with a full kit of Allen wrenches to see which one will work. It's the struggle is real. And try not to get struck by lightning because the rain was coming and going. It's very odd. Anyways, much love to you guys. I will see you later. You don't need to know this. This is not your problem. This is not my locker. All right. Where am I here? This one. This guy right here. And what am I feeling right now? No. We'll do this one because this is a little bit of my Tori Amos-ish mood. This will work. I love this song, but I will see you guys on Monday, perhaps before, for a test, as you do.
The hills are weeping, soft and slow. A shadow falls where I can't go. The wind, it whispers, calling low. Oh, carry me to where the sky meets the sea. Oh, carry me. Oh, set me free. A lone bird cries, its wings so frail. The heather bends beneath the gale. I chase a dream, a fleeting trail. The stones remember the earth it knows, where silent rivers gently flow. I stand alone as sorrow grows. Oh, carry me to where the sky meets the sea. Oh, carry me. Oh, set me free. The wind fades quiet, the